What's good, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. Christian here again with another video, and I have a treat for you because I have two things that Z-Ranks and Bandai are gatekeeping from you currently, and that is the new revenge counter changes. Okay, there's an exploit in the game, a bug introduced by Bandai, that when you get hit with revenge counter, you could act right away and punish it similar to how it was in the base game. So as you see, I'm gonna hit Goku here with a revenge counter, and he's gonna right away act and hit me with a light chain attack. That is not supposed to be that way, but of course Bandai never tests their patches. They just roll them out willy-nilly because they're extremely unprofessional, and that is why we get these exploits in the game constantly every time they do a quote-unquote maintenance. But I'm not gonna gatekeep this information from you. I'm gonna show you how to do it, because a lot of Z-Ranks are being quiet right now about this information, and they're exploiting it for their own gain on ranked and other game modes. So the way you do it is basically when you get hit with a revenge counter, as you see, if you just mash square, you're gonna be slow to act. But if you hit circle, you can cancel the hit stun and immediately punish the revenge counter. See how fast my Vegeta acts after getting hit with revenge counter? It's not supposed to be that way. But Bandai, as a developer, is extremely sloppy and they suck. And that is why we're always having to adapt to these freaking bugs all the time. And I'm not afraid to say that. They're trash, okay? And before I was being a little bit nicer, but at this point it's getting kind of ridiculous. They need to stop patching the core gameplay so much, and it's pissing me off, so I'm gonna make this video. Another change that they implemented but didn't tell anybody is that they nerfed sidestep, okay? And as I mentioned before, sidestep was the new perception. I have a video on my channel about that, and look how fast sidestep was and how overpowered it was. Extremely fast. You can move way too fast with too many iframes, so they decided to nerf it, right? So now look, slow as molasses, okay? So they nerfed it to the ground, which, you know, it's okay. I was calling for that nerf, so I'm not mad at it. My problem with it is that they don't tell anyone. They just change the core gameplay constantly, and that is not good for the game. That is killing the game, because it pisses people off. They get used to the damn game, they get good at the game, spend hours practicing certain things, and then they just change them and don't tell anyone. It's really annoying, and you know, I'm getting a little bit fed up with it. You know, Bandai, extremely unprofessional developer. I've never seen developers like this in my whole life. I've been gaming my whole life, and Bandai really is like probably one of the worst, if not the worst developer I've ever like interacted with or even seen, okay? What do I think about these changes? Like I mentioned, I like the sidestep changes. I thought sidesteps were a little too strong, but my problem is that they're changing the core gameplay way too fast, way too often. They're not allowing their player base to even get used to these changes, and then once they get used to them, they change them in a shadow patch. They don't tell anyone. It's completely unacceptable, unprofessional, and I'm gonna call them out for it. Now, I would rather have broken sidesteps longer than basically have this game change every week, adding bugs every week. Like I mentioned on this channel before, I would rather them just slow the F down and actually work on a season patch. Roll out the changes in a seasonal way. What they're doing right now is really sloppy. Like, I don't understand what they're doing. They basically just change the core gameplay willy-nilly at any point, and they don't tell anyone. That's completely unacceptable, and it needs to stop, okay? And I think the reason they do that is because they're embarrassed that the game is so unfinished, that they're having to change the core gameplay so often. They don't want to admit that this game is unfinished. Just admit it, Bandai. You didn't finish the damn game, and you don't know what to do with the game, which is why you're kind of adjusting everything willy-nilly. You don't have a clear direction for this game. I mentioned it in like 3 separate videos, and it's completely just embarrassing at this point, okay? And in my opinion, the problem with this game is not really the core gameplay. Like, if you remember, the base game was fun to play. It was a little cheesy with all the auto sparks or whatever. It just required some slight changes. It didn't require all these like abrupt changes to the movement, abrupt changes to game mechanics. It's just a little too much, in my opinion. And if you wanted to buff revenge counters, then just buff revenge counters. Why are you making changes to 2 or 3 game like core gameplay mechanics at a time is just way too much, way too fast, and it just reveals your incompetence and lack of direction for this game. It's just like, I just don't get it, honestly. And the thing is, like, if I could give it an analogy for people to understand, like if you ever played a shooter, like a first person shooter or whatever, you know, like sometimes they'll give you the ability to change your custom settings. You could change your sensitivity, your FOV and stuff like that. But once you start to mess around with those menus, you'll never stop tinkering with them, and you'll never get used to the actual, you know, shooting mechanics, because you keep changing them. It's the same with this game. Like they keep changing the sidestep speed, the tracking of combos, the revenge counter mechanic. They keep changing everything about this game periodically, like every month, and it's a little too much. It's making your player base feel like they can't even practice the game, because at whatever point the game is going to change anyways, and without any sort of like clear direction or purpose. You know, you can't just be rolling out changes to 3 core gameplay mechanics at a time whenever you want. It's some BS and you're killing your player base, okay? It's just a bunch of sloppy, unacceptable behavior. And I just wanted to stop, because I feel like this game had a lot of potential. I'm going to say had, because I feel like the damage they're doing right now to this game might be unrepairable. A lot of the player base that was lost, I feel like is not going to come back no matter what happens, because once you lose them, you lose them. In this modern age, you don't have a lot of time to keep the attention of players. Like they have a lot of games that are coming out constantly, and you know, you just turn them off potentially forever. And this game is already, you know, basically in trouble, and you're making it even worse with these stupid maintenance or gameplay change mechanic patches and shit. And my thing is this, like Bandai, if you don't have a clear direction where you want to take this game, then why are you changing those mechanics? For example, like revenge counter, no one was calling for a revenge counter buff. Everyone was fine because we have super counter. Super counter is very strong. We don't need like a really strong revenge counter. Even when revenge counter was extremely weak, it wasn't like people were really crying about it, okay? That they didn't really need the revenge counter or want it to be as strong. And you patched it and you made it stronger, and we were happy with that change, but you didn't need to buff the tracking to revenge counter. Like no one was crying about that. So why are you changing things that the player base doesn't even want? Like I don't even understand that, okay? The perception nerf happened way too late. People were calling for a perception nerf from the beginning of the base game, and it took you forever to change that. But for whatever reason, it doesn't take you forever to add changes to things that no one wants. Like I don't understand that. You know, the sidestep change, a lot of people like sidesteps to be strong. I'm in the minority, I feel, that hated the sidesteps. Like I really despise the sidestep battles, but a lot of the player base liked them, and you changed them when really it was like a 50-50. Like half the player base liked it, half the player base hated it. I don't know why you chose to nerf it and then nerf it in a shadow way. Like why not just mention that in the patch notes? Like I don't get it, because that wasn't even a bug. It was just a core gameplay change philosophy decision. You know, like you just felt like sidesteps were strong. You should have said that in a balanced patch note so that the player base can adapt to it. Instead, you just change it and let us discover it one day as we get on the game. That is some bullshit. And in fact, the tracking changes and the sidestep changes were never a thing that people wanted anyways, even before. Like when the game was you know, before the perception nerf, people were not calling for a sidestep change or a tracking change. They just wanted perception slightly nerfed. And if you would have kept the tracking back then the same and the sidesteps the same, nobody would have said anything, because we actually liked the core gameplay back then. We just thought perception was too strong. I don't know why you keep changing things when no one's really calling for that. Like, and that's the thing. I just feel like Bandai has no spine. Like they have no clear intention for the game. Like if you have a gameplay philosophy where you feel like the game needs to be a certain thing, you need to say it. You need to say, hey, this is the intention that we're going for. This is what we want the core gameplay to feel like, so that player base could get on the same page with you guys. Because right now, I don't even know what the fuck you're doing, bro. Like, I have no idea like what the intended way to play this game is, because you keep changing it. Like, people think, like, I've heard people say like, oh, they want us to go for hard knockdowns. Like, well, how could you tell? Because the way that they change this game is so random that I can't tell what really their intention is behind the core gameplay. I feel like they're just changing things just to change things. It's things that on paper maybe make sense. Maybe you thought like, oh, well, if we're gonna nerf perception, then we need to nerf, you know, offensive options, because then the base the casual players are just gonna get destroyed, you know, which is maybe why you buffed sidestep to replace perception. But the thing is, like, there's no way that you could save the casual player. The casual player is gonna get exposed even when the mechanics are as casual as they are, you know. Even with perception being strong, the casual player was still getting destroyed. Like, it's not gonna change anything. The good players are the good players, and they're gonna remain the good players no matter what you do. But the thing is, like, you're gonna turn off not only the casual player, you're gonna turn off the competitive player as well, because them having to adapt to mechanics that you change willy-nilly and don't tell anyone about is very annoying. Because I'm not even a competitive player, but I do play this game every day as a content creator, and I'm getting annoyed with these changes. Even the changes that I feel like are good, like the sidestep change, like, I'm sick of them just changing the shit so fast. They need to slow the fuck down. They need to roll out a balance patch. They need to fix DP battle, add content to the game, like, do some meaningful stuff outside of changing the core gameplay. Leave the core gameplay alone for a while, please. You know, that's like, I'm gonna give you an analogy. That's like, basically, imagine you practice your 3-point shot, and then one day they just like change the basket height or whatever. So now you gotta re-practice your 3-point shot, and then they change it again 2 weeks later. It's like, bro, fuck this game, bro. I'm not gonna do this anymore. Okay, they're wasting my time. Now I'm gonna look at this match. This match is gonna show the changes to neutral. As we see, I'm fighting a Cell Junior. Very good player here, Brandon. You know, very good Cell Junior player. I'm playing SS1 Goku, which is kind of funny because people always wonder if SS1 Goku could beat a Cell Junior. As you see, sidestep is a lot slower, so you need to be a lot more intentional with the way that you sidesteps. You know, super countering is very important now, because essentially you're gonna get into more combos. Basically, it's easier to hit people now because of the sidestep change. Light heavy smashes are a lot better now as well with the sidestep nerf, because before they were very risky to throw out because sidestep was so strong it was likely to miss. Now if you set it up with a key blast, it's a lot easier to hit light heavy smashes. As you see, my opponent here is very good at neutral, and he's using key blast to set up his offense just like me, okay? Because still key blast is the safest way to engage. Light attacks are still very risky because they can still be sidestep. Even though sidestep is not as strong, they do not track well, okay? They did not fix tracking, they just nerf sidestep. So as you see, the way to use sidestep is to make people miss, basically be more intentional. Whereas before you could just spam it and start your offense by being passive. Now not as much. Now offensive gameplay is being rewarded slightly more. You're going to want to throw more volume of hits than before, and it's something to get used to. And see, that's what pisses me off, is that sometimes, you know, with these changes you'll build a play style based on the changes, and then they just change them halfway through, so now you got to make a new play style. So if somebody like me who makes content for this game, then, you know, I pretty much play every other day or every day, so it's okay for me. But for like the casual player, like, imagine if you haven't played this game in like a week and you get on, it's a completely different game now. You might not even get back on the game ever again, because they just changed the core gameplay way too much, way too fast, okay? Now, if you like this video, go ahead and like and sub and wait for more, because I'm going to be coming with more analysis on characters, more Bandai rants, and more neutral guides such as these. Go ahead and wait for those. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.